Hey everybody, this is Andy with Patterson Adjuster Training. In this video, we're going to talk about scoping and writing a framed wall. So in Xactimate, you have several codes that you can use to reframe this entire wall. And so we're going to act like a tree fell on this wall, and we need to reframe this. In our scenario, we're not going to worry about any siding on the outside. We will do the OSB and the framing. We're not going to worry about insulation or drywall at this point. So let's talk about wall framing anatomy. And you think, why is this important? I don't need to know what these things are called. Well, actually you do, because when you're talking to a contractor, if you say, hey, we need to replace this wall thingy, that's not going to build any confidence in the customer or the contractor. They're going to think this person does not know what they're talking about. So this is a header. Basically, a header's job is to take the load from the roof and transfer it to the studs down to the foundation. Now these windows are pretty small, and so this is a 2x6 header. Most of the time you're going to see a 2x10 or a 2x12 header. So right outside of this header is the king stud, which runs from the top plate to the bottom. And then you have the jack stud, or called trimmer, which runs underneath the header. And then you have these smaller ones that don't run floor to ceiling. These are called cripples. You're going to have cripples above the windows or above doors even. Now you have a top plate here. Usually it's a double top plate. This one's an older home, so it doesn't have a double top plate. Should it? Yeah. Traditionally, you're going to see a double top plate, and then you're going to have a single bottom plate at the bottom. So you have your top plate, and then your header, king stud, jack stud, and your cripples, and then your bottom plate. Knowing what something is called is very important, again, because you build street cred with the contractor and the customer, and if Xactimate calls this a trimmer, but you're calling it a wall thingy or a wall board, you're not going to be able to find it. So using the correct terminology will help you with customers, but it'll also help you write the estimate. So speaking of the estimate, a couple of things that we're going to need to know before we write the estimate. First is, what kind of framing are we dealing with? This is a 2x4 framed wall. Most of the time you're going to be dealing with 2x4 framed walls. Now if you get up north, you may find 2x6 or 2x8 walls, just because they may want a higher R value in these walls, and so they may do a 2x6 or even a 2x8 framed wall. But most of the time in residential construction, you're going to find your framing is 2x4. Then you need to determine your on-center spacing. Most of the time it's going to be 16-inch on-center. This wall is kind of funky because it's pieced together, but most of the time you're going to find 16 on-center, which means when you put your tape here from the middle of this stud to the middle of this next stud, it's going to be 16-inch on centers. You can find 12-inch on centers or 24 on center, but most of the time you're going to find 16 on center in most houses. The next thing you need to determine is this a load-bearing wall? Since this is an exterior wall, it is load-bearing because we have the weight of the roof coming down, and the roof is sitting on this wall, and then it's transferring the load to the foundation. So we know we have a load-bearing wall. That'll be important when we write the estimate in Xactimate. So there's a couple of different ways you can write this in Xactimate. Since we're dealing with a 2x4 wall, the first code that I want to talk about is FRM 4LF. 4 is the 2x4 wall. LF means a linear foot measurement. So we could measure the linear feet from that wall to this wall, plug that into Xactimate, and it's going to give us all of our framing that we need. It's going to give us the headers, it's going to give us the trimmers, the king studs, the cripples, everything that we need in that one line item. A couple of things to remember though is when you look at that line item at first glance, you're going to think, hey, all it did was give me the studs. Well, if you look in the description, as long as you have your windows in your sketch, that's going to give you the headers and all of that other framing that you need. I would recommend adding an F9 note and attaching it to the line item. Go into your descriptions, copy that, and then paste it into your line code. That way when somebody looks at it, they see that description that tells them that it includes everything. Now, the other thing to remember on this code is it's only for an 8-foot wall, so you have to be careful. It would not work on this wall because this wall is 7'2". We wouldn't want to use it probably on this wall just because it's not a traditional 8-foot ceiling. Now the next code that I want to talk about is FRM4SF. So on that code, you're going to get the length and the height, and it's going to give you a square footage calculation. Now using this code is going to give you all of your framing that you need, provided that you added your windows. It's going to give you the headers and all that other stuff. But the thing to remember is it's going to add it in one line code. So just like the LF code, it doesn't explain in the line item what it actually includes. You have to go into your details, your definitions, to find out what it includes. Again, what I would do is copy those definitions as an F9 note, so whoever's looking at the estimate knows that all of those items are included. Now the last way I want to talk about, which is probably my favorite way to do it, is using your framing wizard. Using your framing wizard will drop all of the framing on whatever level you're working on, but it gives you all of your line items that you need. It gives you your studs, it gives you your headers, the king studs, it gives you your OSB. Everything that you need is included. So make sure you watch the next video, which I'll go into Xactimate and show you all of the things that we just talked about today. Of course, I can't give you all that information in one video, then there would be no reason for you to watch the next video. So anyway, I will see you in the next video.